Hello, everyone. I'm Guido Di Pasquale. I'm the Managing Director of PAVE Europe. Welcome to the 8th PAVE Europe virtual panel. PAVE stands for Partners for Automated Vehicle Education. Today, we are having a conversation on a topic that lies at the forefront of innovation and transformation, autonomous logistics. It's a real pleasure to have this conversation today in this rapidly evolving landscape of technology and supply chain management. The autonomous logistics represent a paradigm shift, promising to redefine the way goods and services flow within our urban and suburban environments. So let me say it's a new era that prioritizes efficiency, cost reduction, and a truly transformative urban transportation and delivery experience. Our virtual panel today is a convergence of brilliant minds and industry leaders gathered to illuminate the current state of autonomous logistics. We will talk about regulation, use cases, business cases, and the manifold benefits for users and society. We intend to explore the key pillars shaping the future of logistics. Let me give a special thanks to SAM, the Swiss Association for Autonomous Mobilities, a member of PAVE Europe, for helping to put together this great set of panelists. So I'm delighted to introduce our distinguished panel of experts. Amin Amini, co-founder and the CEO of Loxo. Hello, Amin.
Hi, Guido. Hi, everyone.
Björn Lindner, Head of Innovation at Planzer. Hello, Björn.
Hello from Switzerland.
Daniel Laurie, CEO and Chief Product Officer at UDEL. Hello, Daniel.
Hi, Guido. Hello from California.
And Uwe Riedel, Manager Mobility Service Hub at Bosch. Hello, Uwe.
Hi, Guido. Thanks for having me.
So let's start to get to know you better, and I would like to ask you to introduce yourself and also your link to the autonomous vehicle space. Let me start with Amin. So if you can tell us more about Loxo and also what do you do at Loxo? What is your role?
For sure. Thanks for having me as well. So today I'm representing a company called Loxo, based in Switzerland. We are a startup company producing and developing an autonomous vehicle for the delivery purposes. And what we are building here in Switzerland is a mapless autonomous driving technology with the vehicle that you can see on my background as our first model of the vehicle. And my role at the company is I'm taking care of the company operations. I'm playing the role of the CEO, but being in a startup, I'm also heavily involved in the product design due to my background in engineering, a lot of experience in automotive engineering, system engineering, and making them safe. So I'm still heavily involved with the architect of the autonomous driving in Loxo.
Thank you, Amin. And Uwe, could you introduce yourself and what you do at Bosch?
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, Uwe Riedel is my name, and I'm here working as a project leader, project manager for a project that we call Mobility Service Hub. Within this project, we actually focus on ground handling service concepts for autonomous driving vehicles or for autonomous driving fleets. So a lot of people try to make it happen that autonomous driving vehicles and fleets in any kind of purpose come to our roads. And within our project, we answer the question on how we can then run those fleets and operate those fleets at scale, looking on the ground handling service demand that those vehicles will have compared to vehicles today. And around this, me and my team here within Bosch are developing services to make it happen.
Thank you, Uwe. And Daniel, from California, you are quite far away. Could you tell us about UDEL and what you do there?
Yes, thank you, Guido. Thanks for having us. We at UDelv are the pioneers of autonomous delivery. We started the company back in 2017 in California based on the premise that delivery would be the first large-scale application of autonomous vehicles. The reason for that being that it is safer and easier to carry goods than people. And if you look at the history of transportation over the ages for the last 2,000 years, every new mode of transportation started with cargo first. So there's a good chance that as far as autonomous vehicles are concerned, this is going to be the case again. So UDelv started with a first generation vehicle back in 2018, which was basically a system of fixed lockers on wheels on a enhanced golf cart, if you will, limited in speed and distance. We did about 1,500 deliveries in the Bay Area at the time, took on the lessons from that experiment, then created a second generation vehicle that was could go the distance, was going to go a lot faster, and also more specifically invented and patented this super creative smart cargo space, which has flexible shelving and partition, which allows you to carry multiple types of goods. We did about 40,000 deliveries with that second generation vehicle on the B2C and B2B routes. Eventually moved on to the vehicle that you see behind me, which is the ultimate delivery vehicle, we think, of the future. It's which has about the footprint of a Ford Transit, if you will. It can carry 3,000 pounds of cargo, about a ton 7, and can make up to 80 stops per route. So we're very honored to be on this panel, and I want to say a special thanks to Bjorn here at Plancer, whom we're very excited to be working with.
Thank you, Daniel. It's a pleasure. And yeah, you mentioned Bjorn. If you can introduce yourself and Plancer as well.
Of course. Thank you, Daniel, for this. Say something about Plancer and me. Plancer is a transport company in Switzerland, headquartered in Zurich. We can say we are the largest transportation service provider in Switzerland, family owned. I think this is still something special. When we talk about the size, we have about 1,800 own vehicles in our fleet. I have about around 6,000 colleagues, most of them, of course, today still on the vehicle. So many drivers in our company. As I said, focus Switzerland, about 50 warehouses in Switzerland. And there is some special thing about Plancer. I would say today we run about 60% of our goods by rail. So there's a large number of cargo on the rail in Switzerland with Plancer. We have quite a history, more than 80 years, but we are, of course, on the other hand, quite innovative. My role here is the innovation manager. So that means to engage and, of course, enable our company for further innovation projects and pilots. Focus is, on one hand, of course, AI, computer vision. We have a lot of topics in future of work, and this is, I think, for today, very important. We have the autonomous driving as one of the focus topic, and as Daniel said, we are planning next year to have a pilot in Zurich on the road with the UDelv car. Before joining Plancer, I worked in the innovation department of a large Swiss telco company, and in between as a CPO in a tech startup.
Thank you, Bjorn. We will talk about also this project later on in our discussion. But now I would like to start with Amin, yeah, sort of setting the scene regarding the development of autonomous vehicles for logistics in Europe in particular. So what significant technological advancements and milestones have been reached thus far? So where are we today in Europe? And also in terms of type approval for autonomous vehicles in logistics and obstacles that you see today in this?
Actually, in Europe, if we look what has happened in terms of logistics or goods delivery in the last 2 to 3 years, a lot of positive moves we had here in Europe. I think we have seen very good moves with robots. So if your question is about vehicles, so we can exclude these robots, but a lot of application have been happening in Europe in the last months or last 2 years. When it comes to the vehicles or autonomous vehicles, we have seen also several projects in Europe in different countries with the one common point where we always had a driver on board, which is for me also a first step. I mean, this should have happened anyhow. Then that was somehow the first wave. And now the new wave that we are having here in Europe, or I can more particularly talk about Switzerland, is the fact that we have now projects that there are autonomous vehicles for last mile deliveries without any driver on board anymore. And I can particularly talk about this project that we had with our customer Migros. Migros, for those who don't know, is like a very large food retailer in Switzerland. And with this project, we have demonstrated that an autonomous car without any driver can hit the public road in a normal traffic situation and do these deliveries very safely. So this was from the society perspective, as well as from the authority perspective, was the next step to remove the driver. And I think what is going to happen next is to go from this somehow limited zone of deliveries, or the ODDs that we have, to go to the scale of a city. So I think this is something that we are seeing currently in Europe. Then regarding your second question of the current status of regulation and authorization, what I can say generally in several European countries is already possible to bring autonomous vehicles on road under the condition that we can fulfill all the requirements. If we look to Germany, to France, to Switzerland, we have our own national laws. So the technical requirements are more or less defined, depends on the country. Somewhere we are more advanced, in other countries a bit less. But generally what I can state is the law is not anymore a barrier. Now the question is, who are the companies who can build technology who is compliant with all these requirements? And among these requirements for autonomous vehicle, I think what I see as the most challenging ones, without surprise for those who are coming from automotive industry, is still what we say a functional safety, cybersecurity, and performance safety. So the combination of all these three requirements is very challenging to handle. On top, majority of autonomous technology provider, they are using a system which is based on the AI. And in Europe, we have also this topic of AI, EU AI regulation, or Act, we call it, which is planned to come to be official in 2025 and 2026. So in between, we should push all the safety responsibility to some non-AI, which is functions, which is a bit particular. But still, what I feel in Europe, discussing with several authorities, they are very motivated. So they like to see whatever that they have implemented as the law and the ordinance or directives is applied by the industrial persons.
Thanks a lot. I mean, there is also a question from the audience. I think it's a quick question for you. If you are, as Loxo, you are developing the self-driving system in-house or relying on other tech providers, if you can answer it.
Sure. So at Luxo, we do this technology of self-driving vehicles completely ours in-house. So we don't rely on any external source. So we are developing this mapless technology completely here in Switzerland by ourselves.
Thank you. And now moving to Uwe. what is your perspective? And it's a similar question to Amin, but from your perspective, Bosch perspective, on the current status of AV development for logistics, and if you also see barriers from the regulatory point of view, any challenges or any other type of challenges that you see for the development and deployment of autonomous vehicles for logistics in Europe.
Yeah, thank you, Guido. So I would just take one step back and talk not precisely about logistics, but about AD regulatory landscape in general. I think what we need to differentiate here is three different types of regulation. First is the type approval to get the vehicle really on the road and get it going for a mass operation at scale. The second one is then a national behavior law that comes along with the operation of the vehicle in general. And the third area I see would be the liability, or call it civil law, to then come from a driver, a human being operating the vehicle, towards a software operating a vehicle. And what we see is that the regulatory landscape in the single countries must here enable the operation to make it then finally a business. We see for the type approval some activities unified in Europe, or even today established at Europe, working towards a worldwide approach here, starting in 24 with the ambitious target to deliver something in 25, as far as I'm aware. But in general, this is the regulatory today that I see. Every pilot that I see is operated is on a special permission, actually, as far as I'm aware. And so we have still, even if there is a harmonized approach for type approval, a heterogeneous situation, as Armin also said, yeah, country by country when it comes to the individual operation within those countries. I think this is very, very crucial to know. And yeah, the differences in the law are significant. And if we want to also enable in cross-border operations, Europe is a European Union. Yeah, we are all working closely together, especially I'm living in the southwestern part of Germany here. Cross-border operation is nothing special. Yeah.
Well, actually, with this, you also answered a question from the audience. Someone was asking, what about cross-border operation, if there is anything that we should consider and anything that you see as a barrier today?
Yeah, I mean, for me, maybe I can add here one topic within our project is as I said in the intro, we are focusing on services around ground handling of autonomous driving fleets, which is, of course, calibration, charging, maintenance, cleaning of those vehicles. But one very crucial is the operating compliance, or the operational compliance of a vehicle. So how can we really ensure that the vehicle is operating in a compliant mode on a day-to-day basis? Is there only the OEM or the operator that can certify that the vehicle is operated safely or not? In Germany, with the regulatory that we have established, we see that there are special demands for the operational compliance. And on that point, it brings additional complexity to say, if I operate in a cross-border use case, how can I ensure that the compliance on each side of the border is really followed up on, because we have a different regulation. And this is what we answer with the services that we develop in our project, how we can also, in a cross-border use case, certify that the vehicle is in a compliant mode.
Thank you. Daniel, if we want to have an holistic view of what is today autonomous vehicles for logistics, yeah, how this technology would also influence not only the logistic operators like Planzer, for instance, but also other stakeholders like insurance providers, maintenance services, and workforce management, the infrastructure in general. We also got a question from the audience if the role of the infrastructure in the automated vehicle operation is a necessity or a nice to have. So how do you see in a holistic approach the adoption of autonomous logistics?
Well, first of all, I would like to bring some excitement and optimism to this discussion. I've been in this business since 2017, and regularly every year it's been autonomous driving is going to happen next year, and it did it. 2017 was going to be for 2018, 2018 was going to be for 2019, and it did it. But in 2023, we finally achieved a major breakthrough and milestone. Here in San Francisco, you do have cruise vehicles and Waymo vehicles driving every single day with no one behind the wheel. And this has been happening over the last 6 months. It's a major breakthrough for the industry. And I hope that it will tell the skeptics that this is happening, and it is happening now. I think by now, Cruise has done more than 3 million miles of driverless driving in San Francisco. And I believe that Waymo is over 3 million miles of driverless driving between San Francisco, which is hard, and Phoenix, Arizona. So there is an enormous amount of excitement. It is happening. That's the first point that I want to make. The second point I want to make is concur with Amin that if it is happening, as far as deliveries are concerned, it should happen now without a driver, because there's no point of us in the delivery space to have occupants in the vehicle. And the fact of removing the occupants from the vehicle makes it a lot easier from a compliance perspective and from a build perspective of the vehicle. Here in the United States, recently, NHTSA, which is the National Highway Transportation Agency, has removed the rules that pertain to the occupants of the vehicle from the roadworthiness compliance regulations for such vehicles, which means that we're no longer obliged to have things like seatbelts or airbags or a windshield or mirrors and things like that. This is a huge step forward for this industry. So there's a lot of points that makes this industry doing an enormous, giant step forward in the 2023 timeframe. As far as Europe is concerned, what I've observed is that there's been an enormous amount of pent-up demand from Europe for autonomous delivery vehicle. I think one of the reasons is because the shortage of drivers is driving the cost of labor so far up that the premise behind autonomous delivery vehicle is that it's going to save enormous amounts of money to the industry. Probably up to 50–60% of the cost of delivery is going to be removed by the absence of a driver. So it's going to be a gigantic revolution in the logistics space. As far as legislation is concerned, because there's been some talks about that, I believe that we should have a cautious approach towards that and avoid to put the cart before the horse. I think that we should see some trials, some pilots going on, see how they perform, understanding that the companies in the space are incredibly careful because they understand their responsibility vis-a-vis the other users of the road. But first, see how the pilots go, and then, apply or make regulations based on the actual trials and not the other way around. And finally, as far as the infrastructure is concerned, which was your question, I do not believe that autonomous vehicles will be relying on any sort of infrastructure. The industry has made progress and advances, technology advance without relying on infrastructure. And this has been proven now. It wasn't the case necessarily. It was a huge discussion back in the 2018, 2019 timeframe. Should we be having, traffic lights that will have some sort of infrastructure to tell vehicles where, when they turn red or yellow? I think we're way past that. I believe that the autonomous driving technology does not have to rely on infrastructure. And there's a good reason for that, is that if it were the case, it would be extremely more complex to handle, because the infrastructure is very different from one country to another, even from one state to another within the United States. So to answer that question very clearly, I do not think that we're going to need any type of infrastructure other than lane markings. And that's the only thing that is, in my opinion, extremely important, is that the roads need to be maintained very well as far as the lane markings are concerned. Sometimes in Europe and in some places, you have no lane markings at all. And I think that is the only piece of infrastructure that is going to be needed in the future.
Thank you, Daniel, for giving this overview, and also your views on the infrastructure, and also on what is happening in California that we see here from Europe. And now I would like to ask, let's say, the user of the technology, so to Bjorn, as an operator. You are a sort of pioneer also in experimenting this technology, in using and trying this technology. You talked about agreements that you have done with technology providers. So what inspired you and Planzer to venture into the autonomous logistic field so early on, compared to others maybe?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question, and the dilemma of an innovation manager when it is too early, or especially when it's too late. But what we see in this field of autonomous driving, that there is a huge progress in the last years. We heard this already from Armin and from Daniel. There is progress where we see that it will not take so long time anymore that we can scale up with this technology. And there we are sure. And on the other hand, we face challenges in the deliveries, especially in the last time deliveries, due to increasing volumes. So we think there must be now new concepts, innovative concepts in the logistic, and we think one puzzle part is the autonomous driving. And maybe two main reasons why we are starting now doing it and not talking about it. First thing is, we need to find answers, because there are many questions. Questions is how to integrate autonomous vehicles in our existing fleet. What kind of skills we need in future in our the other thing is how we can educate our own employees for all the things, how we plan the routes in future. So there are many questions, and we believe, and this is part of our DNA so far, that we can answer these questions by trying it out, by even maybe fail. I think that's part of the game. And then there is another point where I think it makes sense to go now into this topic, and this is because the legislation and the law is changing now, even in Switzerland. And as we are the biggest one, I think we have also the responsibility to contribute, that at the end there is a law, regulations where everybody can at the end operate in a safe way. Second thing is co-creation. I think what is our advantage to step in so early is to have partners and find the right partners to co-create on the right solution, because it's not yet there. We could even, there would be the option to wait until the vehicles are there, but maybe then we realize, okay, it's hard to integrate it in our operations. So now we have the chance to find the right partners, and some of them, they are also already part of this panel. and to sync together with our know-how from over 80 years of transportation and the know-how of all the others bringing the AD vehicle technology and software, and to design something out of that. Therefore, I think it's a quite interesting journey, but not sure where it ends. But I think for us, it's the credo. If you want to innovate, you need somehow to connect, and this is the thing. And therefore, as well, because of that, we are a member of the SAM you mentioned at the very beginning. So we need to find out what works and what doesn't work, and at the end to bring something hopefully in near future on the road where we at the end for our customers can bring some value and earn money with.
Yeah, thank you, Bjorn, and also I guess the importance of these partnerships that you are making is crucial. So now it's difficult to do things alone, but it's important to collaborate with technology providers and operators.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Again to you, Daniel, just a quick answer on the, as PAVE Europe, our mission is to educate the people and to educate the general public on the potential benefit of this technology. So what is your perspective or your experience about that? Do you believe that people will accept it and that will trust this technology also from the logistic point of view? So not only as a passenger, but also dealing with logistics.
It's a critical point you're making, Guido. And that's also another major reason why we believe that delivery is going to be the first large-scale application of autonomous vehicles. It's because I'm convinced that people will need to see delivery vehicles roaming our streets without incidents for a few years before they entrust their lives to a computer and are occupants of a vehicle that is autonomous. I believe that as far as that's concerned, autonomous delivery vehicles have a major role to fulfill here, which is to help with the adoption in general of autonomous driving, and then eventually robotaxis and shuttles and things of that nature. And that's a very critical thing. I also want to thank Björn and Planzer, because it is very, very important for the industry to have partners that we can work with in order to make this happen as a reality of the future. If we didn't have partners like that, we would never be able to test it in the real world. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of trial and error in the beginning. And it is we're very grateful and very thankful of having that kind of partner where we're going to be able to test the technology with.
Thanks a lot, Daniel. And would you like to talk about use cases? Uwe, use cases itself for autonomous logistics is a big use case, but there are many applications or use cases within logistics that could be deployed, and there are maybe innovative use cases that we don't even know. So Uwe, do you have experiences with that? Have you explored different use cases or thought about innovative ones?
Sure. I mean, if we put up the scope for autonomous driving use cases, let me maybe quickly emphasize also another one outside of logistics, which is the automated valet parking, because we as Bosch have a technology developed for this AVP, where we connect vehicles with the infrastructure. And this was basically the first level 4 approved public area operating application worldwide. Around this, we see several ones in the logistics area, whether it's urban or whether it's the hub-to-hub. We also gained significant experience with partnerships. Overall, I think we in our project always look on 3 to 4 main in the area. So there is not that spectacular one that I could now bring out of the box, but still I think it's crucial to focus also on the long-term success of the use cases. And therefore we see the mainly first mile delivery here, which means from a production facility to a warehouse or to a depot, where you can then deliver those goods mainly on restricted area, but slightly on public area as well. So in industrial parks or anything like this. Then you get some middle mile cases or middle to last mile cases where parcels are shipped between depots or between logistics sites or then delivered finally to the end customer. And then you see those logistics use cases that you have on private ground, like in ports or pure facilities, where then the operational design domain is less complex and you do not need to see that many factors. I have not seen that specific use case around the AD logistics in general. That has also proven the viability so far. I think there was a lot of tryouts. The viability, of course, in the long term is crucial for the whole industry. Take every use case on that. And I think it's always good to see from our perspective that we are kind of lacking with the real experiences within the use cases, because it's one point to get those vehicles on the road, operate them, 1 or 2 vehicles, and then just ramp up the calculation. But all of these complex topics that come along with the vehicle operation in the individual use cases. Take the funny thing on spare parts supply, on breakdowns, to really then get the uptime within these individual use cases is crucial. So sorry to disappoint you with any special fancy robot or robot drone combinations, but we try to put our efforts on those ones that really can bring a long-term benefit. And I think we have some good candidates in this panel with Luxo and with you, Delph, that are working at least partially in one of these use cases we looked into.
So Guido, if I may interject here, UW has an enormous experience, and we did 1,500 deliveries in the Bay Area with our first generation vehicle on behalf of a dozen different types of merchants, and then 40,000 deliveries with our second generation vehicle. And we realized a few things. The first one is that at the beginning of autonomous delivery concepts, everybody thought about food and groceries. And actually our first, very, very first client in the Bay Area was a grocery chain that was delivering groceries to customers on a B2C basis. We realized that it wasn't the easiest thing to do. We experimented with restaurants, with florists, with a fruit delivery company, with spare parts, and we started to learn about the lessons about the different use cases. And we realized that the fixed loops are probably going to be easier in the first place than random routes. Then we moved to the second generation vehicle, and with 40,000 deliveries, that was a lot. And we had 2 major use cases. One was a B2C use case with Walmart in Phoenix, Arizona, and another one was a B2B use case with an auto parts distributor in Houston, Texas. And we learned a ton of lessons from those experiences, which led us to believe that the low-hanging fruits of autonomous delivery and the first applications will likely be B2B routes. From a distribution center to store number 1, store number 2, store number 3, back to a distribution center, or the way that Plancer wants to use it in Zurich, or we have a couple other clients in Europe who want to go from a local distribution center to supply stores, or going from store to store. There's a ton of use cases and a ton of industries that are working like that. For instance, the auto parts industry, as Uwe was mentioning it, is a gigantic industry, both in the US and in Europe. In the US, it's $700 billion. And they have what we call sourcing routes and hotshots. The sourcing routes are routes that are done every day, 6 times, 7 times a day, from a local distribution center to a store number 1, store number 2, store number 3, back to the distribution center. And the hotshots are from the stores to the mechanics. It's the same in Europe. Those are most likely the low-hanging fruits, because you have professionals on both sides to load the vehicle and to unload the vehicle. And that's precisely one of the reasons why we built our transporter that you see behind me the way it is, with flexible shelving space in order to be able to carry tires as well as, you know, electronics, 65-inch TVs and things like that, because we believe that the B2B use cases are going to be the first applications.
Ah, that's great. Thank you, Daniel. And I mean, what is your view on that? So still remaining on the use cases, which I think is very interesting for the people and for the audience. So what they should expect, and what are the challenges that you see also, but also the excitement of this development.
I think already very valuable use cases has been mentioned by the colleagues in the panel here. I think beside of the use case, what we need, or what if you look what is happening around the globe with autonomous driving, what the companies or the business owner are waiting for is to show that, irrelevant of the business case, the technology should be available to go through the city, right? Should be scalable. I mean, we can talk about the fixed roads. I totally agree. That could be the first step, but at the end of the day, if you deep dive to this type of use cases, you always find some exceptions, you know. And the business owners, they need to find a reliable solution that can handle also the exceptional situations. In that regard, when you discuss with this type of business owners, they really want to see a technology which goes everywhere. And you mentioned the excitement activities or whatever plans. I can talk about the fact that we have started all from these limited ODDs in Europe, likewise in the US. But now, if you look what is happening in the US, they are covering the cities. So the operation or the ODDs, they have grown to the scale of a city. And this is exactly what excites us a lot at Luxo, because the next moves for us is to cover one complete city here in Switzerland. And I think this is also helping for the society perspective, and also the decision makers, the authorities, that yes, the technology is there. It is possible to go from A to B and to C in a flexible way. And I think this is exactly the requirement or prerequisite that we need to change the mindset of the company owner or the decision makers, that they would like to use different use cases. Because I think replacing, we are just replacing an existing solution with an innovative solution. So most of the use cases that we can talk are substitutional, means that we are not going to change the behavior of the end users. We are just changing the tool, let's call it. And but if you want to go to the use cases there, you need to change the tool and also the behavior of the user or the consumers, then it becomes also very difficult. So at the end of the day, it will start with substitutional segments, that if we do exactly the same service with just another tool, but this should come as a very flexible and powerful. Otherwise, it will be difficult for fleet owners to imagine how to handle the exceptional scenarios. And so what I can say about Luxo, this is the plan for 2024 to cover to grow the ODD from a limited zone to a complete city. Yeah, this is what I can say so far regarding the use cases.
Thanks a lot. I mean, it's very important, and as it is important, the view of the user, of Planzer in this case, Bjorn, with your unique approach, use cases means also services that you provide. And it's very interesting what you say, that you don't intend to replace the driver, or let's say to do a one-to-one, replacing the driver with autonomous vehicles, but you see this technology as an opportunity to do something more, to provide additional services. And this is very, if you can elaborate on this.
Yeah, sure. I think it's not realistic to replace drivers at Planzer at once. So, and I must say, driver at Planzer, he's quite an important person still, and he's doing a lot more than driving. So he's mostly a direct link even to our customers, and this is nothing a machine, in our opinion, at the moment can replace. So therefore, even when Daniel is talking about B2B, and I agree, but in the B2B business we are dealing, we have complete different customers, from small, medium enterprise, small customers, big customers, and they rely on today on our drivers. So this is not our current approach. But of course, we see the technology as a big chance, mainly in two areas. One area is where it's already hard to find motivated drivers. And this is more jobs, they are monotonous, repetitive. So things where nobody really is engaged the whole week to drive the same line from A to B. And there it totally makes sense. And this is something we have in head, that we replace there the vehicle with a driver with a vehicle without a driver. And this, for example, to be more concrete, can be we are with our warehouses mainly near to the city center, but not in the city center. So for example, we are discussing already to shuttle the exchange boxes with parcels into the city centers, autonomous, and then doing the last meters, for example, with cargo bikes. So still somebody, a human at the end, handing over where it makes sense, but the in-between line is fully automated. And you must see there's huge potential. So I just heard the figures that in the whole logistic chain, 8% today is not automated. So there's a lot of potential. But as I said, the driver still, or the human being here, has skills where we don't think that this can one-to-one replaced by a machine. Second thing where we, and this is what you mentioned, where we see huge potential, is to ideate on new service. So take it as a chance that there is no driver anymore on the vehicle. For example, you can run the vehicle more than 9 hours in Switzerland, if the legislation gives us the space for that. And there is one use case, and this is already in the discussion we have with our partners, that we come to an autonomous pickup station. So so not to have a fixed one in a place where nobody really cares about, more into, okay, give the pickup station 4 wheels and bring it to the point or to the place, maybe it's in a parking slot not occupied, where people from their behavior will pass by and can collect the parcel. And this is something where we think there is huge potential. And in addition, I talked about the cities, and there I can't give too much information now, but we already think about new services together with the cities. So for example, the vehicle is driving through the roads, so there is potential of new services in the area of safety. And this is, we are just at the beginning, but as Daniel mentioned at the very beginning, we are coming from horses to now vehicles with driver, and now there's a big game changer around the corner, and always with new potential of business cases. And this is something we want to find out. But again, to say, not possible alone. So therefore, we can bring our ideas from our side. But for example, with a city, there's it's necessary to even take synergies, to exchange data, to think about synergies in using infrastructure. So a lot of discussions needs to go on now to make value out of it. And I think, again, as we discussed here, that's the reason why we start even with UDEV next year, because we think UDEV, there's, and even LOXO, there's huge progress in the vehicles, and now we need to combine it with our operations. And at the end, I think that brings real value. And this is not the same like we had before, just purchasing a vehicle with a driver. It's completely different, because you need somehow to integrate it much more deeper in our current processes and data. So it's the difficult part, the last mile, but we see the biggest potential in the last mile. And this is because we decided to go there and not with the easiest way for, let's say, hub to hub.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to it, to what Björn just said, Guido, because it's not when you think about the completion of an autonomous delivery route, it is not just the autonomous driver, it's not just a vehicle, it's also teleoperations to make sure everything is fine. It's also fleet management. It's also all the APIs with the system that Plancer or whoever has in order to integrate the two systems together and make sure that this client will receive their goods. So there's a lot to be done besides just the autonomous driver. It's a very complex technology. And I want to make one quick remark, if I may, because there's been a question in the audience that says, what about lane marking covered by snow? Well, we're past that. The sophisticated autonomous driver technology now can drive in the snow, can drive at night, can drive under rain, as long as the sensors are clean and there's a technology to clean the sensors at all times. Lane markings are really essentially for two reasons these days. Is for ground truth. So you don't need them all the time, but you need them from time to time to be able to ground truth the vehicle and calibrate where you are, and ground truth it against your GPS coordinates. And the second reason is that because the technology is rapidly evolving and the neural networks are rapidly evolving towards computer vision being the main resource for autonomous vehicles. And if computer vision is becoming the main resource for an autonomous driver, you obviously need to see the road as well as a human eye will need to see the road. So that's the reason why it's important. But we still drive under snow and rain and night time scenarios.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, also for addressing the question from the audience. We are almost at the end. Uwe, would you like to say to complement what you just said or what has been said, or react to the other panelists?
No, I think everything has been said. I was just following up on the question in the chat on the scenarios, how we can check technical performance of all sensors via the independent control authority. So I'm not sure who this person is, as it's anonymized, but you can follow up with me on LinkedIn. I can give you an answer to that question and try to touch it really quick on here. I think I mentioned earlier that the vehicle compliance, the operational compliance is crucial to build up trust. Trust for the people in the society, trust within the industry, and trust, as Daniel mentioned, through pilots towards the regulatory bodies to then either specify regulation or then get the barrier for regulation down to make it even more easy to adopt. And I'm very, very curious to see the way Loxo and UDELF are going, because on the very end, it depends a little bit also on the business model and the long-term business model to develop either a virtual driver and a virtual driver with a redundant chassis, and then sell this vehicle, or then being a transport as a service provider, depending on the long-term success. And we see different developments here. Last year, we did a lot of interviews within the industry and also the mobility as a service provider and transport as a service provider. In the long term, told us that they want to merge the activities to transport humans in the very early morning within the city, then operate as a transport as a service provider, and then again combining the human transport outside of the city on the evening of that day. So we will even see that in the future, not next year, but in the upcoming years, with purpose-built vehicles, a further merge for the utilization of the vehicle, also going then on the viability of the individual business cases for the long-term success. So I'm very happy to be part of this journey, and also great that we got in touch on this panel. So thank you very much. And
thank you, Uwe. And Hamin, would you like to add anything? Especially, it's quite important for me the potential benefit for users and society of this technology. And I believe that this will be a real game changer. I don't know how you see it, and if you want to add anything else to the conversation.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the society itself, well, if we talk about those type of use cases that we just we want to just do the same service with another tool, call it autonomous vehicles, I don't really see the advantage for the society. But if you look to the official statistics of the major cities in Europe, you see they are all expecting the delivery vans percentage of the traffic will grow significantly because there is more and more online orders for everything. And this is a real problem for cities. And when this traffic grows, becomes a problem for the city, it will impact directly the citizens. And so I think the advantage at the end of the day will come through the collaboration with the cities, as Björn mentioned, because you can do a lot of optimizations, also partially thanks to this automation and shared mobility concept, that you can reduce with some strategical plannings, reduce a bit the traffic and give a bit more space back to the society. I think this is the more tangible thing that the society will feel beside of the new type of services that will become together with autonomous vehicle.
Thank you, Amin. And Björn, would you like to add anything to the conversation from your point of view? Educational aspects, what do you recommend to other operators maybe in Europe?
I think one important point in the whole discussion is at the end is the public and the user, and how we can take him into this journey, and with the question of awareness and yeah, even understanding what the technology means. And therefore I think the pilots we are starting now, they are very important, and even what you are doing with PAVE, because the educational part to understand the fears and to build trust, and we as a big provider in Switzerland, it's our responsibility to build this trust and to show them that the technology that are coming is safe so far and brings advantages. And this we need to start now. So I think it's really important, as we talk about, that we share experience and that we are really transparent in what we are doing. And I think this is something we all of us should take with us, to always be aware there are people behind, and technology always builds some fear, and we need to work against that so far, whenever we can do it. Yeah.
And Guido, if you allow me
yes, please.
2 minutes, please, on the question of the technical performance of sensors, I think this is a very important question from an educational standpoint. There's a few things to say about that. First of all, it's not just the sensors. The moment that you remove the driver from a vehicle, you have a lot of things where you have to perform checks, because a lot of things can happen. How about what happens if you lose power, for example? This is an electric vehicle. You have a high voltage circuit, you have a small low voltage one. What happens in that situation? What happens if you lose the brakes on a downhill street? What happens? There's a lot of things. So for example, here at UDELV, we've created a checklist of about 200 different scenarios that can happen, and we check that list at a rate of 20 hertz, which is once every 20 milliseconds approximately, and we check that list of 200, I think it's 210 different scenarios and parameters, and we created a code where the computer reacts if any one of those diagnostics fails or has an issue. So it's not just the sensors; it's the entire vehicle. Then the second thing is that those vehicles are built with redundancy. So there's two systems for the brakes, two systems for the steering that are redundant. And finally, in terms of the sensors themselves, there is also redundancy in the sensors, and we're evolving towards the technology is evolving towards, as I said, more weight on computer vision rather than others. I think that eventually the number of lidars and radars are going to be lower, which is also going to lower the cost of those vehicles. And as far as the cameras are concerned, for example, in our case, this 13 cameras for the autonomous driver and another 8 cameras for the teleoperating system, they can be calibrated by themselves. So you have, as long as they're protected from a crash or from an incident, you can auto-calibrate the cameras, and you constantly check if the cameras are in good order. The radars and lidars are a little bit more complicated. Uwe and I had a discussion as far as, calibrate, maintenance and calibrating the sensors on a regular basis. But yes, we do check, and we check that very, very, very often at a rate of 20 hertz. So it's a very important point, and it's not just the sensors, it's everything in the vehicle.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for addressing this point, very important. So unfortunately, our time is up. I enjoyed very much the conversation with you and your expertise. Thank you very much, Amin, Björn, Daniel, Uwe, for joining our very interesting conversation today. Just a reminder, this conversation is recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel and uploaded in our website, and also available in the podcast, in the PAVEcast. So for those who couldn't attend today, they will have the opportunity to listen to this panel anytime. So thank you all for joining us, and looking forward to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Much.
Thank you, Guido. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you, Guido.